Hey, noble ones! What a pleasure! What an insane coincidence to see you here today! What are you doing here? Oh, let me guess. You're here for my next episode of this Yasuke vs. the Metatron Netflix original series. But let me tell you, it is such a pleasure to have you here, and you have no idea the stuff that I've got down for you today. As you could tell from the title, I suppose I don't even know what title I'm gonna use yet, but I think that I let you know that today we're gonna talk about a few things and statements that people have of course erroneously made because they haven't spent 3 minutes into learning about, feudal history, reading feudal Japanese documents, and none of that. They did just become experts because of this whole culture war that sort of infected Assassin's Creed. The other day was someone calling me woke on YouTube. Today someone calling me woke on X. It's great. Get ready because it's great. And also we had people accusing me of not pretending of being a gamer because they're like, oh, you don't care about video games. You're not here because you don't strike to me as someone who actually plays video games. And then I showed you my entire man cave on a few episodes. How many episodes did I make? This many. Link in the description below. And even if you're a hater of mine, you're gonna give me that. My thumbnails are great. I got style. So within 1 week, I've gone from being woke to pretending of being a gamer to even someone saying after seeing the man cave, they're like, well, yeah, but how do I know you just have all of that for show, but in reality you don't even play your games? I don't even know if it was a troll. And if it was a troll, I mean, if someone who means it, I'm gonna destroy you in the next 15 seconds. Even if it's someone who's just trolling, I respect the strategy because it works on me, it works. Let me show you my playtime on Steam. That's Steam alone. Let me show you. I don't think you understand how much of a gamer I am. You know I have a microphone here, right? Because I'm a YouTuber. Do you want to know what my microphone stand is? Do you know what? Okay. My microphone stand is an original PlayStation 2 box put on top of an original Dreamcast box, put on top of a Mega Drive 2 box, put on top, it's not dumb, a Commodore Amiga box. That's my stand for my microphone. I am so much of a gamer that I need professional help. On X today, I found this message. We gotta read it. Land was not only given to samurai feudal Japan, it was given to servants as well. Yeah, I'll expand on that on this video. This is not a pointer to Yasuke being a samurai. You are clearly pandering to the woke crowd. Dishonest. I'm unfollowing and unsubbing from all your social media. You know what's funny about this? I'm gonna unsubscribe from all your social media. Oh gosh. Okay, then that's gonna hit me, because if you only unsubscribe from YouTube, still kept following on X, whatever, I suppose that, yeah, but now that you told me all my... Regardless. First, I don't think you know what a pointer is. I really don't think you understand what a pointer is when it comes to history. A pointer is not a definite statement of fact. A pointer is, we do have this possible detail that could lead towards this specific result, or could lead to remain open to a possibility. That's what I was doing, but yeah. But I'm actually kind of curious. Let me see who this guy is. Let me click on his profile. Okay, so here it is. Oh my god. This is beautiful. Oh, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. Check this out. It is nice to be around people who think differently than you. They challenge your ideas and keep you from being complacent. Says the guy who just completely decided to unsubscribe from all my social media platforms because we disagreed on one thing about feudal Japan that he never studied. That's beautiful. Anyways, allow me to elaborate. Even though I've already mentioned several times on this platform that when it comes to this whole situation between Yasuke being the protagonist of Assassin's Creed, I said that we know for a fact that the reason why they're doing this is because they want to push politics. They've got box that they need to check for the DEI. I've already said that. I've also said that usually when it comes to history, if it's incorrect historical representation of a character's ethnicity for political reasons, it pisses me off. I've also said that many times on this platform, and that one remains my stance. But I also said that if there is evidence that points to a different position, I'm not gonna hide that evidence in order to pander to any specific demographic. Also because at the end of the day, the reason why most of you are here, I want to say 99% of you are here, because you just want to know what the evidence says without any political pandering. Whether you be centrist, right-wingers or left-wingers when it comes to your personal political persuasion. Even though, as I said, I do lean towards the idea of Yasuke not being given the title of samurai because it's very improbable, I also am not going to lie when there are things that could be considered pointers and valid valid arguments that could at least open a possibility that yes, maybe Oda Nobunaga did give him the title. And on the same note, if people are trying to present evidence to absolutely prove that he was not samurai, but that evidence isn't correct, I will debunk it. It doesn't matter if it would strengthen what my current position is. If it's incorrect, it's incorrect, and I'll debunk it. So, for example, let's talk a little bit about this idea that, well, Yasuke couldn't be a samurai because he doesn't appear to have had a surname. Because, of course, the idea being, or the statement being, that only samurai could have surnames, and someone who wasn't a samurai, for example, could not have a surname, and that's that. I'd like to address this, which is a massive misconception, by the way. It's a myth, and I'll prove it to you with real evidence right now. And after we are done talking about names, surnames, and feudal Japan, I will address this idea of what about owning land as a samurai and as a non-samurai. Let's go. The concept of how name works in feudal Japan is actually quite complicated, and it's not something that you can just write off as, well, this is what happened, but you do need to jump into quite a lot of details, and I hope to be able to provide those here today for you. We'll discuss how names work, but we'll also discuss specific factors that can affect whether a person belonging to a specific class could or could not have a name, could or could not have a surname, and whether or not they were allowed to use it at a formal level. One of the main problems when it comes to understanding how names and surnames worked in feudal Japan is the fact that there is a lot of misconception that has been pushed by the media, and then stuff and sentences that are factually incorrect for anyone who looks at the sources, which we will today, are being pushed and repeated because of authors and books that believed myths and then propagated them. A little bit like what happens with medieval plate armor, how the myth of medieval knights needed a crane to be on a horse, and that was repeated over and over again until it became a fact that people just repeated. Well, there is a similar situation when it comes to names in feudal Japan. For example, even in the otherwise excellent book Shogun by James Clavell, upon which the whole, not only the new series, which I've already talked about on this video, link in the description, but also the 1980s one are based, that is a fantastic book. But one of the things that book does, specifically in a scene that has to do with a Catholic monk talking to the protagonist and explaining how names work, well, one of the things he says is that peasants and common people, not only they didn't have a surname, but they also didn't have a given name. And in fact, oftentimes they were just referred to by their job, by what they were doing. This is wrong, but it was a myth believed at the time, and therefore that's why I think the author placed it in the book. So first and foremost, it is not true, obviously, that farmers and just the common people, the populace, didn't have a given name. They did have given names. But what we really want to talk about now is surnames. And when it comes to surnames, even though it's true that important surnames of powerful families were usually only connected to the class of samurai and, high-end echelon of society, and only they could have these important family names, the idea that only the samurai class can have a surname and no one else can in the entirety of feudal Japan is wrong. Now, one easy way to confirm the fact that surnames actually existed even among the local farmer population is to look at, for example, temple records for the deceased, where we can see that even people belonging to the peasants or farmer sphere in society did have surname. And since we're mentioning temples, this not only involves people who are deceased for like ceremonial burial purposes, but also for when it comes to the census. And let's not mention land sales, where once these are not samurai, they've got surnames there. Now, this is a 1557 document where we can see how samurai would sign, but at the same time we also have plenty of documents from the 15th century, from the 16th century, where we see that commoners too sometimes had a surname. So after reviewing this quite obvious evidence, then why do we even have this myth that only the samurai could have surnames, and therefore that was a separating factor between the samurai class, the only ones with the surnames, and the rest of the populace that didn't have surnames? Where does this come from? Well, apart from the fact that it's been propagated by the media and a few books and a few people that speak without reading, but the other reason is because in the 17th century, the Edo government did create a law which forbade members of the low class to use their surnames in official documents and in formal settings. So they did have a surname, but we stopped seeing that surname in records, and people just start either signing just with their names, or sometimes they're identified as, for example, Gambe from the village of whatever. We see that these surnames start disappearing from the record, not because these people didn't have them, but simply because they weren't allowed anymore by law to use them in official capacity. That is, in my opinion, what created the misconception action in the first place. But what's interesting is that even though it is true that that actually happened, the government wasn't too strict about it, in the sense that there were cases in which, even if you were a farmer and in theory you weren't allowed to use your surname, well, if you did do good service for the government or you did something important, you would be allowed to do it and use it. This is to counter the people that just jumped into the conclusion, believed the statements of only the samurai can have a surname and everyone else who isn't samurai doesn't have a surname. So if Yasuke doesn't have a surname, it automatically means that he isn't samurai. The people who jumped into this conclusion and believed this, they're just basing it on a repetition of a myth, but they did not look at the sources to confirm if this statement was indeed true. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much. Once again, to clarify, of course, I'm not saying that, well, since there was this sort of fluidity when it comes to surnames and different classes within the hierarchy or social hierarchy of feudal Japan, then this automatically proves that Yasuke is a samurai. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that trying to say or use the fact that we don't think that Yasuke had a surname because it's not written anywhere as a definitive proof that he must not have been member of the samurai class because there was this precise division is an incorrect statement, and it does not support your cause. Now let's talk a little bit about land owning in the feudal period. It's so funny sometimes to have a little funny note before I jump into the land owning specs of feudal Japan, if you will, is this fact that it's so funny how sometimes I see people that get so enraged by whatever I say that they have to publicly state in front of the whole world that they are now unsubscribing from their channel. I didn't like what you said yet, I can't believe it. Unsubscribe! Exclamation mark. First of all, this is YouTube, it's not an airport, you don't need to announce your departure. Secondly, I really don't understand what you're gaining from it if you're trying to gain something. I don't understand the strategy. If it's just venting because you're mad, well, I suppose if it helps your day and you feel less mad after screaming like that, then please, by all means, announce it to the world. If it makes you feel better, maybe this person had a bad day. But I don't understand if there is something more behind it, in the sense that, what are you trying to do? Is it some form of punitive action? You need to punish me because I said something you disagree with, and therefore I require the punishment of a person unsubscribing? That doesn't really do much, does it? Because yes, I've had about, 3-4 people unsubscribing because they didn't like that I didn't pander to them, and I had 11,000 join the channel in the meantime, so we are still thriving. And when I say we, I mean me, the people watching, who are acting like adults, not children. Unless what they're trying to do is to be like, yeah, but I, who am the center of the universe, and now unsubscribe to you, take that. Talking about entitlement. How about land owning? In feudal Japan, land ownership by non-samurai was relatively rare but not unheard of. The majority of land was controlled by the samurai class, who were granted land by the shogun or daimyo in exchange for their military service and loyalty. However, there were indeed some instances where non-samurai such as farmers, merchants and artisans could own land. One instance is, for example, that some farmers were able to acquire land through various means, such as clearing new land or being granted land by the local authorities for their service or loyalty. Another instance is wealthy merchants and artisans, particularly during the later stages of the Edo period, who were sometimes able to purchase land from samurai who had fallen on hard times or needed money. In some cases, temples and shrines owned land that was managed by non-samurai. Last but not least, in certain regions, such as the Tohoku area in northeastern Japan, there were more opportunities for non-samurai to own land due to the less rigid social structure and the need to develop new agricultural land. But despite these instances, land ownership by non-samurai remained limited, and the samurai class continued to dominate land ownership throughout the feudal period. The social hierarchy and the land tenure system in feudal Japan made it difficult for non-samurai to acquire and maintain land ownership. Hence, the reason why I mentioned the fact that Yasuke owned land as a possible pointer that could connect to the idea that maybe he was given the title samurai and we don't know. The reason why I use that is because the same way, I say, I still think he wasn't samurai though, because it's very rare to become samurai as a foreigner. By the same logic and the same basis, if I have to be honest, I also have to say, still, the fact that he received land, and if he wasn't samurai, would be quite rare, as we see in the records. Therefore, I cannot completely remove the fact that he received land together with a sword, together with the title of Kosho, which usually was samurai, and he became a bodyguard, and he was carrying his swords. I mean, all of these things together, they are not enough to say definitely yes, he was samurai, but they should be considered a possibility. That's what a pointer is, Mr. Neanderthal. And that is all I was saying. As I say, names in feudal Japan, you need to look at the records to have a full understanding of how they worked. Land owning in feudal Japan, once again, before making statements, it's very important to look at how things actually worked, in period. But as always, this is just a little response, and I will make much more. For example, I am very soon going to talk about something I found out. It is going to blow your mind. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye, and fuck Ubisoft.